The Galactic Council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystal, its dome reaching so high that clouds formed near the ceiling. Representatives from 800 species filled the massive space, their voices creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, harmonics, and electronic pulses. But today, the usual diplomatic chatter had died to whispers. Ambassador Zeth Kree of the Vorthak Dominion stood at the central podium, his 4 arms trembling as he held the data tablet. The blue-scaled reptilian had seen 3 centuries of galactic politics, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Behind him, a holographic display showed star maps painted in angry red, sector after sector falling to the Devourer fleet. "Honored delegates," Zeth Kree began, his voice carrying the weight of desperation. "The situation has deteriorated beyond our worst projections. The Devourers have broken through the Kepler defense line. They consumed the entire Rigel system in 72 hours. Military analysis suggests we have perhaps 4 months before they reach the core worlds." A collective shudder ran through the assembly. The Devourers were not like other threats the galaxy had faced. They didn't conquer, they consumed. Entire planets stripped bare, their populations processed into biomass to fuel their endless fleet. Worst of all, they learned. Every battle made them stronger, their ships adapting to overcome whatever weapons were used against them. "What about the Altarian war fleet?" called out Ambassador Tvex, her crystalline body refracting the chamber's lights into rainbow patterns. "They've held the frontier for 200 years. Zeth Kree's reply came like a funeral bell. "Gone. Admiral Kthor's entire armada was destroyed defending the Centauri Gateway. Before they fell, they managed to transmit tactical data. The Devourers have evolved past our weapons technology. Our most advanced plasma cannons barely scratch their hulls now." The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives leaped to their feet, tentacles waving, wings fluttering, voices raised in panic. For 1,000 years, the Galactic Council had maintained peace through superior technology and tactical doctrine. Every member species contributed their expertise. The Vorthak with their strategic minds, the Altarians with their energy weapons, the Ketheri with their stealth technology, the mechanical synths with their computational power. But none of it mattered now. "Order! Order!" Zeth Kree's voice boomed through the amplification system. "We are not here to mourn, but to find solutions. The Council's combined fleet still numbers over 10,000 ships. Our best scientists are working on new weapons. We have time to know." The single word cut through the noise like a blade. Every head turned toward the speaker. Fleet Admiral Corax of the Hegemony Navy stood slowly, her scarred carapace gleaming under the lights. The insectoid warrior had fought in every major conflict of the past 50 years, earning respect even from species that despised the hegemony. When Corax spoke of war, the galaxy listened. "Admiral Corax," Zeth Kree acknowledged. "You have something to add?" "I have facts." Corax's mandibles clicked as she spoke. "My fleets engaged the Devourers at Proxima Station. We threw everything at them: nova bombs, quantum torpedoes, antimatter missiles. They adapted to every weapon within minutes. By the end, they were immune to everything we had." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "Traditional warfare will not stop them. We need something they cannot adapt to. We need soldiers, not just ships. Soldiers." Ambassador Tvex's crystalline form flickered with confusion. "Ground forces are irrelevant against a threat that consumes entire worlds from orbit." "No," Corax replied firmly. "The Devourers always send boarding parties before consuming a world. They study the population, learn their technologies, their tactics. If we could somehow reverse that process, board their ships, learn their secrets, we might find a weakness." A new voice joined the conversation. It came from the observation deck, where representatives of the minor species sat. The warriors of the Ketheri volunteer for such a mission. The speaker was barely visible, their natural camouflage making them blend with the shadows. Corax's compound eyes focused on the Ketheri delegate. "With respect, your stealth warriors are excellent hunters. But The Devourer's ships are death traps. They actively hunt intruders. Your people would not survive the insertion. Then, what do you propose? Zethkri asked, his patience wearing thin. If our best warriors cannot, there is one possibility. The voice came from the far corner of the chamber, where the rarely seen representatives of the Outer Rim sat. Elder Morvain of the Watchers rose slowly, his ancient form supported by a gravity harness. The Watchers were the galaxy's historians, keepers of knowledge spanning millions of years. Speak, Elder, Zethkri commanded with newfound hope. Morvain's voice carried the weight of eons. In my research into pre-spaceflight civilizations, I have encountered references to a species in the Orion Arm. They call themselves humans. The records suggest they are quite different from typical sapient life. A ripple of confusion passed through the assembly. The Orion Arm was largely unexplored, considered a backwater region with primitive civilizations barely capable of nuclear technology. Different how? Ambassador Tfex asked. Morvain consulted his data tablet with trembling fingers. Their evolutionary path was unusual. Most intelligent species evolved from prey animals, creatures that survived through cooperation, tool use, and avoiding predators. These humans appear to have evolved from persistence hunters. They are predators. The chamber fell silent. The concept was almost impossible to grasp. Intelligent predators were considered a biological impossibility. Predators lacked the cooperative instincts necessary for civilization. That's fascinating from an anthropological perspective, Korax said carefully, but hardly relevant to our current crisis. Perhaps more relevant than you think. Morvain's eyes gleamed with ancient knowledge. The humans have a peculiar trait. They do not seem to understand the concept of impossible. Their military records, transmitted through primitive radio signals, describe soldiers accomplishing feats that violate basic tactical doctrine. He gestured, and a holographic display appeared above the podium. Crude images flickered to life. Humans in primitive armor, carrying chemical projectile weapons, charging across open ground toward fortified positions. They have a saying, Morvain continued, death before dishonor. They would rather die than retreat. Their soldiers have been known to fight with fatal wounds, to continue combat missions while severely injured, to sacrifice themselves for strategic objectives. Suicidal behavior, Tvex observed dismissively. Hardly useful. Not suicidal, Morvain corrected. Calculated. They understand death, but they do not fear it the way other species do. More importantly, they have something we lack. Creative violence. Where other species develop standardized tactics, humans improvise. They adapt not through evolution, but through imagination. Admiral Korax leaned forward suddenly, interested. You're suggesting we recruit these humans for the boarding operations? I'm suggesting we contact them and see what they offer, Morvain replied. Our conventional forces have failed. Our greatest warriors have failed. Perhaps it's time to try something unconventional. Zethkri looked around the chamber, reading the expressions of 800 different species. Fear dominated every face, tentacle, and optical sensor. They were the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, but they were losing to an enemy that couldn't be reasoned with or outmaneuvered. Very well, he announced. Elder Morvain, prepare a diplomatic mission to this human civilization. We will assess their potential. There's one more thing, Morvain added quietly. According to the intercepted transmissions, humans have multiple nations, often in conflict with each other. They have professional soldiers, but they also have something called special forces, elite warriors trained for impossible missions. What makes them different from regular soldiers? Korax asked. Morvain smiled grimly. Regular human soldiers fight to win battles. Special forces fight to complete missions. The distinction may seem minor, but human history suggests these elite units have accomplished objectives that larger armies could not. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy. It was a desperate plan, but desperation had driven them to this point. The greatest military minds in the galaxy had failed. Perhaps primitive ingenuity could succeed where advanced technology had not. How quickly can we make contact? Zefkri asked. Our fastest diplomatic vessel could reach Earth, their home world, in 6 standard weeks, Morvain replied. However, we should prepare for cultural shock. Humans have never encountered alien life. First contact protocols will be complex. Admiral Corax stood again, her carapace gleaming with determination. 6 weeks. We can hold the line for 6 weeks. After that, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Then, we proceed, Zethkri declared. Elder Morvain, select your best xenocultural specialists. Ambassador Tvex, prepare first contact packages. Admiral Corax, begin planning integration protocols for human forces, assuming they agree to help. As the assembly prepared to adjourn, a new voice spoke from the shadows. It belonged to Commander Vex of the Kethari Special Operations. What if the humans refuse? What if they cannot comprehend the scale of the threat? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Everything depended on a species they had never met, whose capabilities were based on intercepted radio transmissions and historical speculation. Elder Morvain answered slowly, his ancient voice carrying both hope and foreboding. Then, we pray that our assessment is correct. Because if humans are what I believe them to be, if they truly are the warriors their history suggests, then we're not just asking for soldiers. He paused, letting his words echo through the vast chamber. We're unleashing something the galaxy has never seen. Something that might save us all, or terrify us more than the Devourers ever could. The chamber fell into absolute silence as delegates contemplated this possibility. Outside the crystal dome, the stars shone peacefully, unaware that the fate of trillions hung on a single question. What happens when a galaxy of prey species calls upon apex predators for salvation? In the depths of space, the Devourer fleet continued its relentless advance, consuming worlds and growing stronger with each victory. They had evolved past every weapon, adapted to every tactic. But they had never encountered an enemy that fought not just to survive, but to win at any cost. They had never faced humanity. The diplomatic ship Harmony's Edge prepared for launch, its destination a small blue planet in an unremarkable star system. On board, Elder Morvain reviewed files on human military history, his ancient mind struggling to process concepts like Pyrrhic victory and acceptable losses. He read about human soldiers who held impossible positions against overwhelming odds, units that continued fighting after being officially declared destroyed, warriors who turned certain death into strategic victory through sheer refusal to accept defeat. Most disturbing of all were the legends, stories of human soldiers so effective, so feared, that enemy forces would rather face overwhelming conventional armies than encounter these elite specialists. Soldiers who became myths, whose very names were whispered as warnings. The galaxy had begged for soldiers. If Morvain was right, humanity was about to send them something far more dangerous. They were about to send legends. The orbital defense grid around Earth detected the approaching vessel 3 days before it reached the outer system. Deep Space Monitoring Station Sierra 7 tracked the unknown object as it decelerated from impossible speeds, its energy signature unlike anything in their databases. Colonel James Mitchell stood in the Pentagon Situation Room, watching the live feed from the